Oftentimes, we appreciate and celebrate a celebrity story rather than our very own. What if I told you God wants to shine a light on your story? Today, I have 3 beautiful ladies ready to share their testimonies. So I have an icebreaker question for you guys to start off. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Using one word, describe your relationship with God. Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
Confident.
Confident. Theresa?
Purposeful.
Purposeful.
Progressive.
Progressive. I would say sacred. Y'all ready for this work?
Yes.
Get it.
Get this work.
Oh yeah.
So when we deal with brokenness, what does that process look like? Right? That healing process. What does that look like for you?
That process is very ugly, for me in particular. Just because visiting wounds and visiting scars are uncomfortable, it's nothing easy to ever face. So I know for me, it looks really ugly. Some days it looks like I want to face it head on. Some days it looks like I don't want to talk about it. Some days it looks like I'm crying a lot. Some days it looks like I'm using other devices to feed my brokenness. Things pertaining to feeding my flesh. So I know that I turn to drinking, I turn to smoking, I turn to relationships, codependency, wanting to have men around, wanting to just have maybe company that doesn't necessarily feed the healing process that I should be walking towards in a sense. So yeah, I use those other things to fill the places that essentially I'm wanting God to fill. I'm wanting to be filled with His peace, His understanding, His righteousness, His goodness. But I use other things in replace of that because it's easy and it's quick. And then the moment that they go away, you notice that you're right back in the same spot. So it didn't really even do anything for me in a sense.
I feel like for me, that spot before you get to the righteousness, that part in the brokenness is so away from yourself. I don't know when I was in that place. I didn't want to do anything like me because I couldn't feel me. I didn't know what it looked like at that moment. And so when I was healing, it was a roller coaster. Sometimes I was really joyful. I was rejoicing in the Lord. And other days, it was like I was crying and I was in a depressive state. And I didn't want to leave because I didn't want people to see me like that. And so it was really hard, but it was a fight. It was a fight every day because not only are you dealing with the things that you're facing, but also the demons that you've inflicted on yourself sometimes, you know, with the people that you've hung out with and the characteristics that you have to get away from. Because I know that really played a big part into my brokenness is the people that I had surrounded myself with during it. They were not doing anything to help me get better, but they were making me sick. And so I not only was fighting my own demons, fighting myself, but I had to fight those demons as well that they inflicted on me. And so it was a roller coaster because some days God was my peace and my joy, and other days it felt like I couldn't find Him.
What specific moment in your life can you remember that you were broken, right? That you look back and you're like, if only I had known that I was going to get to this point right now, right? I would have been grateful for the process.
I know honestly, it was most of my teens for me. Starting with my parents getting divorced and moving to a new school, and then losing my grandma all within the span of about 6 months. And I never healed. I thought I did, but I was still in environments and I wasn't talking and I wasn't coming forth with it. So I was carrying all that weight and I didn't heal, but I thought I was good because I kept telling myself I was good. You know, I was like, I don't have anything to be upset about.
Right.
You know, so I didn't carry it. And then when I got to my freshman year of college and there was boys and there was girls and there was drama and I'm in this new place, I'm in LA, you know, all that, those things that I didn't heal from, it was like I was face to face. And it was like I'm in this new environment where nobody knows me and I'm trying to figure out who I am. We're all trying to figure out who we are. And I just know that I got myself into situations. I started hanging out with people who were just not for me. And I started doing things. I know that was my first time getting drunk ever in college. And I was, it felt like I wasn't around safe people. So I was judged. I was judged a lot. And I felt like my entire first and second semester of college, it was, I'm sorry. I felt like I was apologizing for everything. I was apologizing for who I was. I was apologizing for everything. And then because of the confusion, and I've never been in a relationship. And, you know, my dad at that moment in my life, we weren't on the good terms that we had been. Everything had changed. And so when I got to college, it was kind of like I just wanted to be loved. I felt like. And so there was an opportunity from a friend of mine at that moment in time. She had told me that she had feelings for me. And I know I was so confused. I didn't know what to do. And I thought it was something that it wasn't at the time because I just so badly wanted to be loved. So I went for it. And unfortunately, it took a toll on me because then I was confused all the time. Every day I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. People were telling me one thing and then I'm believing another. And I'm like, I know for a fact that I'm not gay. I know that. But why do I have feelings? And then because I was told myself, okay, I'm like, well, God's telling me like, I'm okay. And then it got to a point where I couldn't even hear God's voice anymore in my life. And it was like, I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm like, I'm good. I can figure this out myself. And then I started hanging out with people and a specific girl that influenced me. And she's just telling me these are the things that I need to do and trying to get me involved in like sexual stuff. And it just, unfortunately for me, it was something that I had to go through because I was letting other people tell me who I was when I knew who I was in God. But because I let every other voice be louder than his, it was like I lost myself. I couldn't even feel God. And that got scary when I paid attention. And then all of a sudden these people who are my friends and we're supposed to be uplifting each other and we're going to church together and I'm like, you guys say you're for God and you say, you know, we're all on the same page. All of a sudden they saying, I don't like you. I don't want to be around you no more. I'm done with you. Discarded me like it was nothing. And I was by myself. And I remember I wanted to die. I remember I was sitting in my my dorm room and I was like, yo, what is happening? And I couldn't feel myself and I wanted to feel anything, right? And I just remember I really wanted to hurt myself at that moment. I really, really did because I was like, what am I doing? I didn't know who I was in that moment. And God stopped me. God stopped me. And I remember I was screaming and I was crying. And he woke me up. And it was funny because I remember the week before that all happened, I went to church and I went by myself. And then I got this devotional and it was a prayer and it had a warning on it. It was in the Bible app and it had a warning and it said, you know, before you pray this, you know, get ready because you're going to shed some people in your life. And I mean, that week it was like everything dropped like flies. And it was like, wow. And I didn't know what I was praying when I prayed it, and I didn't know what I was saying when I did it. But overall, that was the start of me healing and remembering. There's not a point when I'm in LA to this day, and when I was there, that I knew that wasn't my purpose. But because I was flagged with so many other people's things, and that whether they were supposed to be there or not, it made me a little confused at that time. But I knew that was my purpose. And I got a message from this girl, and I would say it was life-saving, where she said to me, today's the anniversary of the day that I was going to kill myself. And she said, because you talked to me in class that day, this is in 2015, I'm broken, I'm upset, I just lost my grandmother, but I knew she was hurting, and God just called me to her, and she messaged me these years later. And that girl ended up saving my life by telling me I saved her life. Amen. And she said to me, she said, I was going to kill myself that night, but because you had a conversation with me, I'm still alive to this day, and I just want to thank you. And I remember I just cried, and I was like, thank you, God, because that brought me back.
I think that you sharing that, there's this misconception that brokenness doesn't take place while walking with God. You know, that, you know, people expect you to kind of have this, oh, when I was broke, it was before I was in the Lord. And now I'm in the Lord and I'm whole. Like, there's a sanctification process that takes place. So you sharing that, I think, cleared up the misconception that even while you're walking with God, there's still very much so brokenness, right? Yeah. there's a process and a standard that he's bringing us to. And it reminds me of my story, because I gave my life to Christ in 2016. My mom passed away in 2015. And so I got into like a relationship that just wasn't conducive for me. It was very toxic, emotionally, mentally, all that stuff. And I got to a place where I was just broken. And I was going to share that story. I was going to go into how I was broke before I came into Christ. But then I thought of a moment when I was in Christ where I was super broken, where I wanted to commit suicide, where I wanted to take my life, where I felt like I had lost the sensitivity of God's voice. And that was just 2019. And it was due to my disobedience. It was due to something that God told me not to get into, and I ended up getting into it. And the moment that I did, when I say everything spiraled within a 6-month span, it taught me so much about God's consistency in my life and God's patience in my life. But at that point, I couldn't see any of that. All I could possibly see was, once again, me using this relationship to fill the brokenness in me, to fill my hurt. And it got to a point where I was physically abused. I got hands put on me. I tried to kill myself. I tried to hang myself. I tried to take pills. And once again, these are stories that no one really knows unless like I called and reached out to you at that time. And it's so crazy because I'm usually that friend that's like the strong one. I'm the one, oh yeah, I got to call Rukiya for prayer. Or I got to call Rukiya for, not knowing that in the inner room, I'm really felt defeated. You know, I felt broken down. I felt crazy. So yeah, I just wanted to address the fact that brokenness happens while walking with God, because that's who he is. You know, he is our healer. He is our deliverer. And he wants us to depend on him, essentially, in this walk. So I believe he brings us to places where we have to be on our knees so that we can call on him and we can depend on him. A space of surrender. You know? Mm-hmm. So God used that exact thing that broke me down to make me wiser, to make me stronger. You know, Romans 8:28, all things work out for the good of those who love the Lord and who are called according to his purpose. So all things include the craziness, the suicide, the depression, the crying, the happiness, the you being used in the midst of your brokenness. All of that is playing a role. And so, yeah, looking back at that, it was purposeful.
Your walk with God, you know, sometimes, like you said, get rocky just because, you know, you're close to God or you have a relationship with God. It's your life isn't always happy, but what I do know, most of the time where I went into like a depression, or I went into a feeling where I felt like I was entitled for answers from God, so I questioned God and stuff like that. It was due to me and because God already told me, you know, God said, you know when you're supposed to go left, but you go right. You know when you're supposed to go right, but you go left. And you know when you're supposed to go straight, but you go whichever way, you go backwards, whatever you want to do. And I come to realize, like, most of the things that I've been through spiritually it's not anyone else's fault but my own. You know, so it was a lot of things that, you know, I put on myself because I was so used to, I loved the friends that I had, and I didn't want to lose the friends that I had. And I was having fun with the boys. I was not focused, you know. So when God really, like, you know, when I got serious and said, okay, God, first of all, this is not me, and this is enough of whatever it is that is going on in my life. I'm sorry. When I had a couple of those turning points where I had to really, you know, like you said, God brings you to your knees. God said, you will bow down to me. Period.
You mentioned something in the beginning about this, you know, essentially it's up to you. Is this like the decisions that you're making?
Yeah.
So even as I mentioned the relationship that I got into and how I wanted to kill myself and how I went through abuse, I want to first say that I was not a victim. It was something that I was well aware of, that I was spiraling down in, that I made the choice to be okay with, you know?
Yeah.
And not only I wasn't a victim because there were also things brought up in me as well. There was anger brought up in me, you know?
Right.
I also did things to trigger me being abused, you know? So for my transparency purposes, like, I just want to make it known, like, I wasn't this puny thing and someone just started flinging me around. Like, no, I played a role in it.
So you brought up depression
in
the beginning. What is something specifically that you've been depressed about?
I guess the feeling lonely is depressing. When you feel like nobody, is either there for you,
or understands
nobody
you,
bothers you, understands you, any of that. Like, just nobody. Like, it's hello, whoa, echo.
Nah, not the echo.
I remember something that said I yell and it only reaches the plantation of my own ears. Like, it's I'm crying out
for help.
But yeah, I'm
crying
out
for help.
Help, love, understanding.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's really not. No one was available to give that to me, and God was like, it
comes from me.
It comes from God, and it comes from you.
I know that feeling of like nobody sees you.
Right.
Like nobody sees you in that pain and in that struggle, and you got to be strong for everybody else, and you can't come about your problems without that judgment. And I know because I was raised in the church and I always had God present in my life with my parents and my grandmother, that I always felt like I had to be perfect. And I was like, I'm not gonna drink like that. I'm not gonna smoke, I'm saving myself to marriage, and I still am. That's on period.
Yeah.
I still haven't given no man my body.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I'm fighting every day because I'm over here trying to be perfect, but I'm not Jesus. You know what I mean? And I'm sinning.
And he knows you're not.
Yeah. And I'm over here sinning, trying to do that. And then it got to that point where it was like, I'm over here trying to be this strong, independent girl, trying to be righteous in everything that I do. And I'm over here hurting every single day, hurting from my mother, hurting from my father, hurting from my brother. And I'm like, I'm carrying all this weight and nobody sees me.
Right.
So last year, June, and I know I'm gonna cry because this is still open wound. My grandmother passed away, and my father doesn't even know this, and he's gonna see this, and it's probably gonna make him cry, but the Holy Spirit is telling me to share this. I did not forgive my grandma for making me feel not welcomed. And so she passed away in June. And I lost it for the first time. Like, I'm a well put together person. I'm very strong. And I've always relied on my own strength. And I think that's the problem, right? So talking about a place of brokenness, we the reason is disobedience as well, and the reason we get tangled in these things is because we're relying on our own understanding. And so, like, for the longest, thank you for the longest, people have perceived me to be strong, confident, and that is true, but I've never gotten the opportunity to be weak. Right? So I have this relationship with God, and the most thing that's so precious about a relationship with God is that when you're weak, that's when he uses you the most. Disclaimer, my grandmother is a beautiful person. But we're all humans. And she hurt my feelings when I was younger with a lot. And I brushed it off, thought I healed from it.
Right.
Came to college, noticed I didn't heal from it. So fast forward, I come here in June last year, and my father texts me. He's like, she's not doing well. Well, she wasn't doing well in Georgia, but we all like, comfortable because we're like, she gonna be good. She's always good. I went to Red Lobster to go meet my, shout out to Red Lobster. I went to Red Lobster to go meet my.
Shout out to them biscuits.
Shout out to them biscuits. I went to go meet my grandfather and my mother, talk about my loans and stuff. So my father texts me, and I was on my way to go see her at the hospital, right? She's fine. I get on the train, and he's like, she's unresponsive. Now, I'm in my mind, when I see unresponsive, I'm like, okay, they probably have her like to some stuff for oxygen. She gonna be good. I get there, eyes closed, unresponsive, just like the movies. Like, I get there, and it's like a done deal. And I remember asking God, like, I'm supposed to be your favorite. Like, I feel like I'm your favorite. I felt like I'm your favorite all my life. Like, things that could have happened to me did not happen to me, right? Like, I've been protected and covered. Like, she's gonna make it. You got to be kidding me right now. Like, it's not about to happen. Like, and so when she passed, I think the part that hurt me the most, that I didn't forgive her. And this is why forgiveness is so precious, right? And I remember covering her in the hospital and telling her, like, you know, I know you're coming out of this, like, whatever. The whole family came, and then it was a movie because the doctors was like, she's not gonna make it. And I'm like, stop. Like, I was face to face with him, like, stop declaring that over my grandmother's life. Like, you trying to tell me a woman that helped raise me is not gonna be here for longer. Like, everything flashed before me. Like, I've placed in my head fantasies, me winning Oscars, me winning, buying her a house, me winning an Emmy with her front row and center. Picture the color of her dress and everything. And when you have something set in your mind, right? Like, when you have that image, it's hard to break that. It's hard to break that. And so when he took her, I went back to Georgia, and I was a hot mess. The first half of my year last year was good. After June, it was horrible. I barely had anybody checking up on me. Like, I'm gonna just be honest. And so this is the time that I needed people to really be there for me, right? And I became a little bitter. Like, I'm like, nobody's checking on me. Like, nobody really loves me then. Because this is the time, like, I don't ask nobody to be there for me. I welcome it, I love it, but I'm always relying on my own strength. And I think that's why I have this cross on my shoulders, this burden, right? Because it's not mine, it's his. And so I remember one time I was in a house by myself, and I started throwing my bar stools all over the place. I think I cracked the wall a little bit, started yelling. I'm like, why would you do this to me? Like, why have you forsaken me? Like, why is this happening to me? Like, I'm supposed to be your favorite. You told me that I'm your favorite. This does not happen to people who you favor. Like, why is this happening to me? And just that healing process, it took me a while to come out of that place. And what I learned from that is that I do not rely on my own strength. And on my knees, he brought me to my knees, right? Like, all of those things needed to be said. When I was saying that to him and yelling and screaming in the house by myself, all of those things needed to be said. Because that was breaking down those walls, right? And allowing him to come in and do his work in my heart, right? Because I was holding this, like, I got this, I'm gonna be strong, I got this by myself, And I didn't have it by myself. So I had to surrender it all. He brought me back to my knees, back to a place of surrenderance. And from there, we walked on a journey of healing. Again, you know? And I just shared that to say, like, sharing that is a healing process again, right? Because sometimes you think you're healed and you revisit things and you're like, I thought I passed this already. I heard this great quote that says, once you remember it, forgive again. It made it so clear for me. So earlier you said something that brought Rukiya to a point of misperceptions, right? So that leads me to my next question. I know you girls were ahead of your game and ahead of your time. So my next question would be, what is some of the biggest misperceptions, right, of women of God that you have experienced?
I would feel like that people don't understand, like, just because I am a praying warrior, just because I do, my head is in the Bible, just because I do have a relationship with God, doesn't mean, you know, I won't have my off days, or I won't have my days where I'm just, like, you see me for me. I am human, and I'm not God. Just because I have a relationship with God does not mean I'm God. I am God.
Yeah, I think it's the idea of perfection. The idea of, and I don't want to use the word holiness, because yes, God has called us to holiness. God has, and holiness just means to be whole in Him. Like, that's what that means. It's not a place, like, not this religious standard, you know, right standing with God. And guess what? We became that when we've accepted Jesus as Lord. Like, that's what happened. Once that blood is covered, that Holy Spirit is dwelling within us. That blood is what redeems us and what justifies us. So, you know, it's like, it's this idea of perfection, this idea of, like you said, not being able to be flawed, but God knows that we have sinful natures, you know. I am not at all, disclaimer, saying that it is okay to be sinful, saying that it's okay to indulge in things that God has called you to do better in.
Yeah.
No, but understanding that this is not a walk of perfection, but one of progression. Like, it's a constant maturity. It's a constant pruning, you know, like, and I'm just tired of people like, you know, and what makes it hard is, you know, I'll participate in things with people and then try to minister. And so sometimes, you know, right. And so people won't really fully try to take or receive what it is that I'm saying. But, you know, one, of course, understanding that everybody's not your assignment, but also to like still just being able to be that example, you know, regardless. And what that example is leading in love, because that's who God is, leading in grace, because that's how he treats me, you know. So I'm learning, and how I try to walk, and Alana knows this, is to really just treat people the way God treats me, because I am in no position.
And you really do.
To, like,
you give a lot of grace and mercy,
like,
a lot of grace and mercy, and I can say that.
I'm in no, because I know I'm crazy. So who am I when someone comes to me in that same state, in that same hurt, to be like, oh girl, you gotta, no. Like, that's why I'm here. I'm here to be your sister, to sharpen you, to hold you accountable, to love on you, love on you. That loving on you is so important, because it goes back to the misconception. People think I'm supposed to be perfect, and I come to you with my flaws, and it's like, you gotta be righteous. You gotta, and it's like, well, what were you doing when you weren't at that place? Not saying, because we mature in God. So yes, we should get to a place where there's certain things we used to struggle with that should not be our struggles anymore.
Elementary school.
Exactly. Like a baby. Like, once, and the word talks about that. Like, you start taking more whole food. You're not taking that milk anymore. Like, now you can eat solid food.
Yes.
Don't speak to me from the place that you're at. Speak to me from remembering when you were
where you were at.
Exactly.
Grace. Speak to me from grace.
Yeah.
Right. I had to, but I think I'm just gonna focus on one. Is that Christian girls can't have fun. Like, that's the part that's been getting me. It's like, no, I can have fun, and I know how to have fun, right? And don't get it twisted. I am still gonna honor the Lord and having fun, but I don't have to stay in my house all day and read my Bible, and that's all I can do, and go to church. I can go and have fun.
Right.
Obviously, like, you got to be smart about it, because like I say, you never know who's watching you. You never know who
and that's
who's
for
coming from you.
People are afraid of commitment. That's what people are afraid of. And I always say this, and they don't like it when I say it. When you get in a relationship, you are taking the person with their flaws. That's what God does with us. And it's so selfish to think that I can have a relationship with God and then still do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, so what makes people think that this is, they get me tight? Like, what do people, like, they get me tight because you be like, oh, these Christians are trying to be perfect. No, we're trying to be righteous.
Exactly.
We're all just trying to be, right? Like Jesus. We're not, but we're trying to be like Jesus. And so you sit here mad at me because I'm going to church and I'm serving, and then I go to a party on Saturday. Yeah. I'm 22 years old. I want to go to a party. Jesus ain't say I can't go to no party.
I'm a dancer. I like to dance. I like to turn up. I like to bust a little wine, right?
Period.
Okay. Like, and the Lord knows that, right? With environments like that, what is being exposed to me is like, okay, there are certain places that you can't go because it brings certain things out of you.
Exactly.
That I'm trying to heal and mature and you know,
get a hold of.
Get a hold of. So then that's where obedience comes in. That's where maturity comes in. That's where discipline comes in. Because it's like, okay, I know that me entering these certain environments, certain things are going to be triggered in me that God is trying to change about me, right? So, okay, yeah, I could party, but maybe I shouldn't have 4 drinks.
Exactly. Going back to the obedience of, if you're not supposed to be in that environment, trust. Trust. Or if you're going to go into this environment, know your limits. You know what I mean? God never said you can't have fun, but there's a way to do it where you're still, you know, doing it with his honor and glory. But even then, when you're doing things that don't align with who you are, they start not to be able to entertain you anymore.
It is just important to know that as a woman of God, you are held to a specific standard.
What is something that you would say is unique about yourself?
I think my ability that we brought up earlier to forgive easily, to extend grace. I love to give chance after chance after chance. Learning how to balance that though. But I think that's a gift. I think it's a gift to be gracious. I think it's a gift to be forgiving, and truly understand, like, not just doing it because God told me to forgive and God told me to be gracious, like, but really doing it from that heart posture. Like, I think that that's unique about myself. I think that my ability to see people for how God sees them, and that, once again, that comes from my personal relationship with God, like, which is something I believe I'm called to, you know, because as he's pruning me to look like the image of Christ, prior to that, I looked like the woman in chains. I looked like the woman at the well. I looked like the one who was deaf, who was blind, who didn't know, who couldn't see. And those are the exact people that I'm going to minister to. So if I didn't go through the things that they will be in when I come out, I won't be able to speak to them.
You better.
So, yeah, glory to God.
I would say my kindness and how much I care about people. Not on a surface level care. I care deeply about everybody and their spiritual self and who God is calling them to be. That is something that I take very personally. And because of that, I believe that God has led me to be able to have wisdom beyond my years, and wisdom to be able to talk to people and use his own voice through me. And I believe that that's also where my forgiveness comes from. You know, it's not about, you know, if you hurt me or something like that. Sometimes it's the things that you're going with, and I'm able to see past that person and understand it's maybe the demons that are afflicting them. It's the struggle that they're going through, and not necessarily the person who they are. And because of that, I believe that's in God, and it follows into my purpose of specifically children. I love children. I feel like they are the start of everything, and I believe that God made me a leader. Amen. You know, just so that we can be able to show them the not the necessarily way. The right way, but the purposeful way, the God way.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
I think how big Jonetta's heart is. She's a humongous heart. So my ability to understand someone and accept them for who they are. And, you know, the way that God has made them, you know, just so that we can continue, you know, we can always be together to grow in the spirit and move on, you know, with who we are. And at that point, I think it really, it matters. Like I said, I sit there and I rebuke people, like I rebuke whatever spirit, you know, because
it's a spirit, right? It's
I
not them.
protect that. That's the only thing we really have at the end of the day is our spirit. So you have to protect it. But just, I know that the mission is to, you know, save souls. And it's not, you know, to be, you know, forceful, you know, things like that. God said, that needs my time. That needs time. And like Rukiya said, not everybody is your assignment. But your assignment, the people that you are assigned to, you give them my time. The ability to take time out of who I am and what I got going on, what I do, and give it to other people to, you know, water them and flower them and help them grow and watch them grow for God's sake, you know. That I think that's a special gift. I think, you know, giving myself away to people, like in a good way, not like my body, but myself. You know, to people so that they can, so we can watch them like
blossom and grow.
That's good.
My fight is different, and it's very precious that I don't give up on God, and He doesn't give up on me, and I fight for my identity, and I'm fighting for my purpose, and I'm fighting. Although it's already mine, it's a fight. This lifestyle is a fight. This is not for the timid or the people who don't want no challenges. You're gonna get challenged every day. Every day you walk out that door. First of all, starting from the bed, when you wake up, there's a challenge. Opening your eyes is already a challenge because the enemy is coming. He's only here for 3 reasons: steal, kill, and destroy. He brings distractions, destruction, and all the other D's that we don't need.
Okay. Listen, not all other D's.
That was on the fly, homie. You
all the other D's.
What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? What kind of woman do you want to be known as? What woman do you want this world to say, when you're gone, they're going to say this specific thing about you?
She lived up to her worth her value. She knew her worth and she lived up to her value. And she didn't accept anything less than what she knew she was worth.
Period.
She did it all, but she didn't settle for less. And she knew God, and she spoke about God, and she honored God in everything she did.
A groundbreaker. Someone who opened ways that those around her thought was impossible, or those around her thought they would never see. It could start even from my kids. They will not have to deal with impurity. They will not have to deal with fornication. They will not have to deal with addiction or drunkenness or depression, or children out of wedlock. Like, and these are things that I've seen generationally in my family, that I refuse to get past me. And so that alone right there, and those are things pertaining to just like spiritually being solid. I want to be known as a woman on God for fire, that loved her community, that loved her family, that poured into those around her. Like, just someone who was selfless, someone who really wasn't about herself, you know? And I believe that, you know, the moment that I fully surrender that to God, like, He'll provide everything else. He'll fill me up with everything else. Like, and so I just want to be that woman, you know, my grandchildren to be, yo, grandma, like, she used to tell us stories about her testimony. She used to be wilding in Brooklyn. And then she got all these organizations. She opened, you know, I also want to leave an inheritance of like land and money and finances, you know, and the way that's done is not through me hoarding a bag right now or just thinking that that's what it's about, but you know, down to vision and what God gives you. God gives us multi-million-dollar ideas. You know, Unfiltered coffee is one of those things. It's something that's gonna build legacy for people. You know, finances is gonna come out of this. Fruits are going to come out of this. And groundbreaker, I say that in particular just because, like, I just know that there are heights and mentalities and mindsets and places that my family has not seen. I know. And no, I'm not the oldest out of my sisters. I'm the second oldest. But I believe God is intentional as to who He calls at what time. And so, you know, I just want to be that for them. You know, I know that I'm the one that's going to be able to bring my family into Christ. Like, you know, my family is going to be saved because of my obedience to God, you know. And that process looks a little crazy at the moment and feels uncomfortable, and there's division, there's things that's unclear as far as family goes, but I know that as I continue to lay my life down for what He's asking me to, as I continue to be obedient to Him, obedience, as I continue to do that and walk in that, things are going to shift, and it's going to shift beyond my understanding. The way that I pray is beyond just for my momentary reasons, just for the momentary people that I'm around. Like, I know that that's going to carry on to my child, into my marriage. Like, things that I can't necessarily see right now, I know that those things are going to break the ground for it, you know? So, yeah.
You know, rest in peace, Kobe Bryant, and Gianna Bryant. This man gets to get in front of the kingdom and say that he accomplished what God has called him to do. Would that be me if I left tomorrow? Not yet. We mourn, yes, but he is in a way better place, and God is so proud of His son. By 40, this man accomplished so much. I'm not talking about the materialistic things, and I'm not talking about the things that we value. I'm talking about his legacy. The reason why the world was so much in mourning is because this is a great man of God who happens to be black, a great man of God who shared his story, his testimony, and overcame every obstacle that came in front of him. Every obstacle that came in front of him. And so, like, my question, and I was talking to people about this, I would be so afraid. You know, I used to fear death, and I think I'm coming to peace with that. I fear now getting to the kingdom and Him saying, daughter, you had all this time. And you did not accomplish a thing I asked you to do. And so I want to be a revolutionary woman, and I want to be the woman that people say she did it all.
Okay.
She excelled at every single thing she did
Mm-hmm.
because she put and kept God first.
Okay.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anything less than that. When they see my name, when they see me, you're gonna see God.
Right, same.
All glory and honor to him. I just want to say thank you for being a part of this project. Thank you for sharing your stories and your testimonies with the world and with women out there. Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.
This is Unfiltered Coffee. Whoa. Okay, I gotta get my coffee cup. Thank you so much.
Look.
Let's toast.
Hallelujah.
This is a toast? Oh,
Look.
snap.
You know, I'm